What is up? S&B Trading Nation coming at you with a little technical analysis for our trading session tomorrow, April 11th. Today's the 10th. We just had futures market open and it looks like the S&P hasn't really moved, so we'll take a look at the S&P first and see where it's headed. So for Friday, you're looking at the 15-minute chart. We opened up on a gap down. I called this. I said if we open 448, we're going to go down, test 445 or 446, and bounce back up, and that's exactly what we did. We went up, filled the gap, bounced up. We retested 450 again, pushed a little bit higher this time around. Actually, no, we were a little bit lower than last push on Thursday. So we pushed up, couldn't get as high. We got a lot of resistance right now at 450-50-ish, and then we came down and we rested right on this 15-minute, 50-day simple moving average. And it looks like, based off that last closing 50-minute candle, that's just a big ugly red dingus there, and it's got a big wick down, so we really sold hard there at the end of the day, but kind of recovered some of it just to close right on that 15-minute simple moving average, right above 447.50. So based on that, it's pretty clear that 450 is the big level to break and hold for SPY. It's tried it. You can see these 15-minute candles. Big green candle, fully engulfed in red. Big green up to it, fully engulfed by a red one. And then we had the big green up and then down, down, down. So yeah, it's looking like if we open around this level tomorrow, I expect it looks like we're heading downwards. So we'll probably go back, retest 446. Can't hold that. We'll probably retest 445. And we're now in this big narrow kind of megaphone looking channel. Um, so if we bounce back to the bottom of this channel, we'll probably look at testing. I mean, it'll take us almost right to 440. So that's worst case scenario. If we can't hold 445, we can't hold 443, which was where it double bottoms there last week, then I would expect 440 is in the realm of possibilities for SPY. Otherwise, we do now have based on, here, let me fix this drawing up a little bit. So we do have a support line now that we got a little upwards momentum from SPY. Operate. Let's draw a new one. Boom. So we got that big support line. We bounced off at 443.60, bounced there twice, ripped up. So if we respect the support line, I expect 446, and we can't hold that, 445, so on and so forth. But otherwise, to the upside, the big key level we got to break. We got to break out of this megaphone kind of thing we're doing. Megaphone where the support and resistance lines are going away from each other because of this channel we're in. And if we can break that top resistance line, I mean, it's basically from where we're at in this chart, we'll go up and test it basically at the top of these other candles we had. So it's really 450.50 is the big spot to break. If you look at SPX, yeah, so it barely closed below 4,500, so it's basically 4,500 for SPX, but SPY's a little bit off. But in terms of SPY, it's really just 400, 450.50 is what we want to break. We break that, that'll break us out of this channel we're in, and then I expect we go up to test 453. We do not have a gap anymore on SPY. We filled the gap Thursday. So after we go break 450.60, we go up, probably test 452, then 453. It could just be more chop this week. We'll know if the market wants more blood based off of where we open, and I assume if we gap down, we'll go down, probably break 445, test 443. If we can't hold that, then that means we're back in downtrend price discovery mode, just looking for a new support level, and I'm hoping that'll be 450. But Yeah, based on the chart, I mean, it's in a somewhat sort of kind of uptrend, micro uptrend in these past couple days. We had our higher high, we had a higher low, couldn't quite get a higher high, so a bit of a low, I guess a lower low, and then a higher low. So we're in consolidation. Just gonna have to break out of range. Either way, it's probably not going to be a very quick move based on how SPY's been going. We have CPI data coming up this week, so that's the big catalyst everyone's watching. If inflation's not as bad as everyone's expecting, I imagine that's going to send SPY through the roof. So that's mainly what people are watching for. It's a short week too. We got Good Friday, markets closed. So yeah, that's it for SPY. We'll look at some of the stocks that we own. For Coinbase, we're sitting about $10 away from support, and we have a big fat gap to fill to the downside. And it bounced. Wow, that's crazy. So right here, at this price level. So this price level I just made right here, double bottomed off of that. This it's so crazy. This last candle of the day went down to test into the gap fill, tried to break into the gap fill, couldn't, bounce off. So if we rip tomorrow on Coinbase, we could see a potential double bottom. And that would lead me to believe that we're going to go up and test 170. If we break that, we can test 174 and then go up to fill that gap. Coinbase has, I see one gap. It only looks like one gap for Coinbase. So, yeah, it's basically at support like everything else is right now. Support being right above the gap fill. Break that, I imagine it'll be immediately down to 156 to fill the gap. And then below that is 150, obviously the big support that it held this entire pullback where it triple bottomed over here. Yeah, kind of a triple bottom. Not exactly. But yeah, 150, big psych level. It's the lowest it got through this whole pullback. It's kind of crazy. Coinbase has come down about 20% since the end of March. It's just been absolute blood for Coinbase. So at this point, it's just getting oversold, in my opinion. It's it's a matter of how much can people possibly sell off of this stock. And yeah, on the daily, the RSI isn't crazy. You look at the 4 hour, and the 4 hour is sitting at about oversold at about 30, 33 on the RSI, relative strength indicator. So, in my opinion, I think we bounce. If we don't, then we'll definitely fill the gap. Once the gap is filled, I imagine we bounce. Um, yeah, if we can't bounce off the gap fill, because that's basically what everyone sees now. Everyone looks like it's a huge push up, huge push down. When you make a fat gap like that on the push up, you just are gonna count on it getting filled sooner than later. So that is probably where it's gonna get sent. Market makers see the gap. They know people like me see it. It's probably gonna get filled. So that's what I'm expecting on Coinbase. AMD just cannot get any breaks. We are sitting right at support for AMD. Let's look at the 15-minute. So yeah, it is just in the definition of a downtrend on ever since these past couple weeks, I guess. Uh, just lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. So we're at the point where it's another one. It's like, how much can this possibly sell? We're right at support at $100. Everyone knows $100 is, I mean, it's bounced off of 99.35 is the absolute low, and it bounced hard off of that. It had a big fat green candle over here on the hourly. People wanted it at $100, and it's just getting way too oversold. The stock isn't that bad. It got the thing that really started it. It had this gap down was just the price target change from Barclays. And in my opinion, that's not really that big of news. It just semiconductors in general have been getting destroyed. Let's look at some indicators on the 15-minute. So it does have one gap to fill to the upside at 103, hardly a gap, about 50-cent gap. And then it filled this. No, it still has more of a gap to fill at 106, like a 20-cent gap. And then there's a bigger gap up here at 116, all the way up to 118.59. So just a lot of gaps to fill the upside, sitting right at support. I imagine It's going to bounce. I am not a buyer on it yet. I want to see if it bounces and how hard it does. We sold ours, went to Nvidia. I think Nvidia is just the safer bet, and this economy or this market, everyone's just taking the safest bets they can. And I like Nvidia better than AMD currently. And just looking at Nvidia, their chart is very interesting. So, speaking of gaps, they have a fat gap on Nvidia. Two fat gaps actually. So right here, also just in a fat downtrend ever since the Nasdaq pulled back on the 29th. We've sold off, what is that? Um, about 25% from this past high here on Nvidia. Just absolute blood every single day. So we've gapped down multiple times. It's sort of kind of found support here at 230, but it's sitting right on it. So if we don't open green, I expect it's gonna go. It's in this little channel here we got. So the bottom of this channel would probably be about 225, and what do we got? A gap fill, 231. Yeah, so it does have a remainder of a gap to fill. Actually no, I think it actually filled it already. So it's got the gap filled to the downside, and usually these big pullbacks, if there's a gap on the downside, that's what it's going for. It's just going to keep going for it, keep going for it. Everyone sees it, and the closer it gets, the harder it sells off, and Nvidia's just been doing that. So now that we have the gap filled to the bottom, we got the two big ones to the top. We got one here at set price level for 240, 239.30. Fill up. So that gap to fill all the way to 242 basically. And then we got the key level here, 244.30. After that, another gap to fill up here. Just going to be crazy, this rip back up for Nvidia. I know it. Big gap to fill from 253 up to 258. So we got some monster gaps here on Nvidia. It's also getting oversold on the 4-hour chart. I mean, it's more oversold. It's about as oversold as it was back at its low here at 209 during the pullback, or like 206. So expecting a bounce any day now for Nvidia. Just depends on the rest of the semiconductor index, and it's the biggest name in it, so it's going to lead the charge if it feels like pushing back up. But if we can't hold 230, then it looks like, let me zoom back out. If we can't hold 230 on Nvidia, I would expect testing around 224.65, and then from there 211.84 on Nvidia. Okay, that's hourly indicators. So yeah, we're back under that, the 1 hour, 200-day EMA. We're well below that. This is rough on Nvidia. It is just so far away from these indicators that are typically magnets for the price. On the 15-minute, yeah, we're below the 50 simple moving average. Just, it's so far below, so far under all these indicators that are just magnets for these stocks. And hopefully a meaningful bounce won't just be a cool off for more selling, but an actual bounce, actually buyers coming in. They're not just going to bait people into getting it and then sell it off a little more. So yeah, that's Nvidia. If we break the support line here, that'll probably be 227. If we can't hold that, then I would absolutely expect we go to 224, then test 210 for Nvidia. What else we got? So Square. Square. Hourly. So Square, we saw we were in this, we formed a tiny, sort of, kind of a head and shoulders. We were in this channel going up, up, just bouncing on each support, each resistance. And then we went down, tested the bottom of that channel, and it didn't even get a chance to test it. We gapped down below the channel, broke out of that channel, and now Square is basically searching for support. It had such a crazy rip up. We do have a gap to fill to the downside, 105 down to 104. So small gap on square. Uh, yeah, I mean it's not as badly oversold. It's just fintech. We're in the sectors that are just getting ripped apart right now. Fintech, semiconductors, the growth sectors that everyone gets scared of when they hear inflation. So that's what's getting sold off. It looks like this hourly 200-day EMA is kind of acting as resistance right now. So hopefully we can go up test 127. We're about $4 off of that. If we can't break that, I expect we'll go down, break 120. That's exactly where it found support actually in this big red candle. If we can't hold that, I expect, man, it is just not a lot of areas of support because Square just ripped up so hard. So it looks like 111 would probably be the next level I'd look for. Yeah, maybe 118, find support there, but just got this big old, big old downtrend that we're in for these past couple weeks here. Got that there. We have support here. So yeah, we're kind of just in this little wedge. Hopefully we break to the upside. If not, break the downside at 121, 120, so on and so forth. We need to reclaim this hourly 200-day EMA at 127.57 on the 15-minute chart. Yeah, that 200-day 15-minute chart is way up there, but on the 30-minute, this one's up here. We just got the gap to fill. So I'm not seeing much for Square. It's kind of just looking for support at this point. Check out the NASDAQ. Bloodiest of them all, the NASDAQ. Alright, my chart's a bit of a nightmare. Let's clear some of this up. Okie dokie. Alright, we got fib levels from all-time highs to the lows of this pullback here. So, for the NASDAQ, we still have the big fat gap to fill to the upside all the way from 356 to damn near 359. So we have a full percent point of a gap to fill on the NASDAQ. And right now it is sitting at support. Support being about 348.50. And yeah, I mean, just another one of these things, just a chart where I'm just not seeing. I mean, it's obviously got the downtrend. We'll draw this little trend line here. Obviously got that downtrend that we're in. Got that 200-day moving average right there on the hourly at 353.21. It battled around there, tried to hold that a few times, couldn't, and that's why we're looking at more downside. I expect more downside to be if we can't hold about 345, just cycle level there. I expect we'll go to 341, this next fib level that I have here. We don't have any gaps to the downside on the NASDAQ, thankfully. Just got to, yeah, really just got to fill that gap. So it's bounced off that gap fill. I mean, it barely got into it on Wednesday, and then we tried to again, I think Thursday, and just it has refused to go into the gap. And actually, on the 15-minute, we got two gaps to fill. So a tiny little one from 353 to 353.84. So just a tiny little gap, but just the fact that the NASDAQ has been refusing to go to fill these gaps is worrying because typically that's when buyers are sitting there waiting to jump in, is when we're in gap fill territory, because it's usually a good chance that it's going to get filled. But it just has not been happening. And you can kind of tell where NASDAQ, I mean, it kind of just dumped off at the end of the day. We had this support line here that it just broke, and we just sold off, clear down to 348. That's where that bottom wick is. So, open below that, probably gonna Test 345, can't hold that. 341. It is not terribly oversold on the 4-hour chart. I mean, that's the bad part about when you have such an insane rip up, is that this RSI, it really needs to sell off to get oversold on the RSI. This 4-hour, we're actually right on top of that. Whoa, I didn't even notice that. This 4-hour 50-day moving average is kind of acting as support right now, and that's it's a meaningful level if we can't hold that 348.27, because that's another one of those things where we break it and it rips, but if we can't hold it, it probably drops. And you could tell during this whole pullback, it tested it once here, rejected it, once there, rejected it, broke there, and we popped. So if we can hold it, probably gonna bounce off. Can't hold it, we go back to down to those key levels. Um, just a lot. It could be just super choppy up until the CPI data. I think that's everyone's waiting for that. There's no earnings. Fed's done talking for now, at least. So now it's just sit and wait, see how bad Ukraine and Russia screwed up our inflation, see how much prices on everything went up for consumers. And typically, when prices go for consumers, they spend less, and they usually spend less on tech. At least that's what everyone believes, and that's the game of stocks. It's the mass psychology. If everyone believes it, then that's how it is, no matter how much I disagree. So it's just been an absurd amount of selling on the Nasdaq. You can just see these volume candles. Like, I mean, it was some crazy buying on this push up, and then it got to the top, and volume just it got stale, didn't do anything, and then we've had these big red volume candles just pushing, pushing, pushing. Lots of puts, lots of selling. The fact that there's two gaps, I would think that it would try to fill those gaps before going back down. So that could be a potential bull trap. They let the price go back into the gap fill. Everyone jumps back in. Oh shit, this is it. We're filling the gap. And it fills the gap, and then we bounce off. And look at that. That 400. Ooh, that 200-day exponential moving average on the 4-hour is actually going to be right where that gap fills. So that could be a potential resistance. If we go to fill the gap, bounce off that, and we're going back down. But to the upside, the best thing I could see right now is we just go to fill the gap. Once that's done, hopefully, once it fills it, it still has strength to push back above 361.16. If we can get there, then I would expect we go up to break this high of, about 371.83. And that's for the NASDAQ. What else do we got? Facebook. So Facebook. It has had some bullish divergence from the rest of the market. It has not been getting completely wrecked like Apple has, or even Microsoft has. Like, of all the FANGs, it's been selling off the least because just in general it's sold off so hard during this pullback. Meanwhile, like Apple was about to break an all-time high, and now it bounced off like $10 off of that. Facebook peaked up here at 236, and then when the rest of the market was selling off, it was kind of going sideways, and we had a fat gap down, and ever since then we kind of just been pushing down, and I love these Fibonacci levels. They are beautiful. So we tested this fib level at 218, bounced off of that, came up here, 224, bounced off that. Now we found our support line. Now that we have a bounce, and the support line held up right here, it bounced off of that big time. Let's do 15 minute. Get a better idea. Yeah, these support lines were money, man. They bounced right off of that to the T. So bounced off of that, came back up here. This 225 level is basically resistance right now on Facebook, which almost just so happens to be the 200-day moving average for 50-minute chart. So now this last candle wicked down to that support, couldn't break through, and now we're just sitting there right at support. Can't hold that. I expect we go down, test 218. If we can't hold that, we could possibly see probably about 214 is where I would expect, 213. If we can't hold that fib level for Facebook, it just hasn't been selling off like the other FANGs, and that's a good sign. I mean, usually that bullish divergence means once the Nasdaq picks up, this really picks up. But this is all just if we quit selling off so hard. So for Facebook, if we can hold that support line, bounce off that, I expect we break 225. Then we got to break 226, and then this gap to fill is way up here. Top of this wick is at 228, and we got to fill that baby all the way up to 231. So we got a big old gap to fill on Facebook. It filled this gap to the downside, and once it filled that, that's basically this resistance line is the top of this gap to fill that we had back from the 1st of April. So yeah, just the strong bounce off of that support level is bullish. And then just that big sell off, the fact that we didn't break below that support line at the sell off tells me that we're looking like going towards upside. If Facebook could, like, if it could ignore what the rest of the market did and just do its own thing, I would see it going up from here. But unfortunately, it is a tech company, so if tech sells off, it's going to get affected. So we have the support line. We just have this little flag here, not really like a bull flag or anything, but you can see we got this support line. We haven't even tested it yet. This is back way back from the top of this wick. You can see these support lines where we broke it. We ripped out of it, broke right there, kind of ripped out. Yeah, I'm not seeing much of a setup. These fib levels have just been money, so that's kind of just what I'm watching on Facebook. I think, see on the hourly. Yeah, the hourly 200-day EMA, we've broken it, ripped back up towards it. We had one big red candle here on the hourly, ripped out of that hard. We had a big push, big volume on that green candle, and so far that we haven't broken it again. So could be Chop City. We could bounce in between 218 and 226 for who knows how long. But yeah, we have found our low for this time being at 218. So let's hope we can find some higher lows and higher highs from there on for Facebook. Let's look at Apple. Biggest one of them all. So Apple is, it's a crazy stock. It can get 11 days of green in a row and then just bleed on like any stock I've seen. Like just it's crazy. So see if I can clean this chart up a little. So Apple, just like every other big tech stock, has a gap to fill to the upside, and it's tried to fill it, couldn't. Just like Nasdaq, came down, tried to go back up towards it to fill it, came back down. So it isn't a solid downtrend in this microcosm, the like 5-day downtrend. We've had higher high there, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, so on and so forth. Right here on the hourly, we're right at that 200-day EMA. That shows you the strength of that indicator. All these stocks are literally sitting right below it or right above it, and it is either support or resistance. So yeah, for Apple, key level here, 170.50. We have kind of, I guess, a downtrend line here. I mean, it has just seen some like this hourly candle, just ridiculous. From 172 all the way down to 169. That is an absurd sell-off for Apple in a single hour. So a lot of sellers in Apple right now. Can't hold support at that 200-day EMA at 169. I imagine we'll retest this support line probably at 169. Can't break that. I expect we don't have any gaps to fill the downside, so that's good. We'll probably go towards 167, then can't hold that. We got a big key level at 166. So yeah, close below that key level there, and it just has to find a bottom somewhere. It's got to break out of this little wedge it's in, fill the gap, and then we should be good to go. Then next key level is 176 on Apple. And then we are still in this like channel. I mean, this channel we've started back since the end of March, just in this kind of similar megaphone channel to the Nasdaq, bouncing in between there. But we haven't retested that resistance in quite a while. Not since, yeah, since April 4th.